In this video, let's talk about area. What is area? Area is the amount of space something takes up in 2 dimensions. So, for instance, I could draw a little box here and say one box here, this is 1 box of area. Just like that, it's that simple. I could draw another shape here, looks like this. This is 3 boxes of area. Whatever shape I want to draw, I could just count up the number of boxes and that's how much area it has. But it does get a little more complicated. What if I draw a shape that looks a little bit like this? How many boxes of area does this take up? Well, you were probably expecting me to close this, but I intentionally didn't. Unlike these 2 shapes, this does not have a defined inside and outside, so we have to say area is undefined. It's kind of a unsatisfying word in math, but we can't expect math to solve all of our problems. There are certain things it just doesn't work for. So this area would be undefined. Similarly, what if we want to measure something not in boxes, but use some sort of American units that we're familiar with? So we could come down here and we could measure 1 inch, and we could say, okay, this is an inch right here. This grid paper is 4 boxes to 1 inch, so 1 inch equals 4 boxes. How much area does this take up? Well, not counting the amount of ink I just put on the page, you could zoom in with a microscope, but let's not do that. We're going to pretend this is just a one-dimensional line here. It has no area because there's no inside and outside, it's just a line. So what we can do though is if 1 inch is 4 boxes, let's just make a box that is an inch on each side. So we just make something like this. And this would be 1 square inch. It can't be 1 inch because that's this, so it has to be a square inch. Or if you want to write it differently, you could write 1 inch with a little exponent on there. And 1 square inch equals 16 boxes. Why 16? Well, 1 inch is 4 boxes, and how much do we contain here? Because, well, we have 4 by 4 equals 16. So this 4 is 1 inch, this 4 is 1 inch, and for those of you who like algebra, you might notice if you multiply these, 1 times 1 is 1, inch times inch is inch squared, so that's where we get the exponent notation as well, because we're multiplying 2 things together. But let's not multiply here, let's just count up boxes. Any shape I make that has 16 boxes is going to have an area of 1 square inch. So what if I do 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 by 2? Or I do something that looks like this. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Let's give it a head on it. Something like this. That is also 16. So let's just take a moment and shade these in a little bit. So even though the area is different, it's still 16 boxes. So this is still 1 inch square, and this is still 1 inch square. No matter how we arrange this area, if it takes up this much space in 2 dimensions, it is going to have 1 square inch of space. So then we can move on to other shapes though. Suppose we have something that looks like this. Let's draw perhaps a letter E. And let's make it look like this with a kind of a shorter center bar that's a little higher than center. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 boxes of area. And let's draw another little shape that kind of looks like this. Let's see, how about like that? So there is your snake, and your snake takes up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 venomous boxes. So, but it's easy to count up boxes, but what if you want these in square inches? Where our conversion is that 16 boxes equals 1 inch. So, depending on how much you're into math, you might like this or not. But you could set up a proportion. So if you want to know 14 boxes equals question mark, square inches. Oops, I meant square inches. There's a couple ways to do this. With a proportion, you could say 16 boxes is 1 square inch, and that will be equal to 14 boxes over x square inches. But you don't really need to know cross multiplication, division, multiplication, whatever. What you can just do is you can say that 14 over 16 is going to be equal to x inches squared, and as a decimal that would be 7 over 8, which is 0.875 inches squared. And that makes sense because that's a little less than 1, because this was a little less than 16 boxes, which would be 1 square inch. So similarly with the snake, you just do 11 over 16, and that's about equal to some decimal. I don't know, I don't have a calculator handy. But put it in a calculator if you want that as a decimal, square inches, just like that.